Once, when the apostles were sailing on the stormy lake, so we are told in the Gospel of today, they saw Jesus walking on the water. And they were frightened and thought they were seeing a ghost. Only the apostles and Peter had a better idea. Lord, he calls, if it is you, call me to come over to you across the water. And Jesus says, come. And Peter climbs over the railing of the boat, and with his eyes fixed on Jesus, believe it or not, he begins to walk. But then, when his first impulse of religious enthusiasm is over, he begins to doubt. He measures the power of the wind. He feels the water he is walking on. And we hear him think, what for heaven's sake am I doing? Walking on water. How can? And as soon as his doubt sets in, he begins to sink. Man of little faith, said Jesus to him, why did you doubt? Dear friends, the story of St. Peter walking on water is somehow also meaningful for us. The story doesn't want to teach us, of course, how to walk on the water in a literal sense. But it tells us something about the power of faith. It tells us that if we have real faith in Jesus, that power of faith will help us sometimes to go on in the most unpromising circumstances and to do much more in our life than what naturally speaking would seem to be feasible or manageable or logical or realistic. Years ago, I read a fascinating true story of a pilot who had serious trouble with his plane and crashed right in the middle of the jungle in Brazil, thousands of miles away from the inhabited world. His situation seemed hopeless. The only good point was that he was not seriously injured. So for several weeks, with almost incredible perseverance, he traveled on in the wilderness. He walked, he crept, and he hacked his way through the jungle for hundreds of kilometers until finally he was met by a group of people who brought him safely home. Later on he was asked what kept him going against all odds. And he answered, well, I guess it was God. You see, I kept praying to him all the way. Because in spite of all my misery, I felt he was at my side. And that was it that gave me the power and the energy to keep moving on. Dear friends, I suppose each of us will have moments in life that the going is difficult. Moments perhaps of great spiritual crisis, moments of serious illness or death, or problems in our job or family life or financial situation, a natural disaster, whatever. However, in that case, no matter how difficult it is to keep moving on in life, trusting God, keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, will give us a tremendous power to survive. It will help us, as somebody once said, to bear the unbearable, to do the undoable, to pass the breaking point and not to break. It will help us sometimes to achieve something what seems to be humanly impossible, like the Apostle St. Peter, who walked on the water in an act of faith. Dear brothers and sisters, what goes for the individual goes also for the society as a whole. In the long run, I believe no society has the power to sustain itself if all faith in God is missing. Look at Nazi Germany, or to give a more recent example, look at communist Russia. They were trying so hard to build a society without God, and it all looked so strong and so impressive and indestructible at first. But as you could have seen with your very own eyes, eventually the whole thing collapsed and finished into nothing. So let this be our prayer for this year's National Day, that this may not happen to Singapore. Let us pray that in future years, more and more Singaporeans, Christian or non-Christian alike, may put their trust in God, so that even if we have not enough food to eat, perhaps, or clothing to wear, or material things to enjoy, even in times of crisis, when the bottom seems to fall away from under our feet, our faith in God's power is still there to keep us going.